What is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 7 of Spill the Tearal, which is a podcast where we go over some JRPG news, releases, upcoming games, what I've been playing, mechanics, top lists, and more. And this is going to be an exciting episode for me because we're going to be talking about spoilers you see in the title probably, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. For some reason, with a lot of these episodes, I have noticed that the biggest news breaks like an hour before I start recording, so I just got really lucky with the day I picked to record these episodes, so we're going to be going strong with this episode too. I think last week was probably the only episode where that didn't really happen. There was still some news, but it was kind of news that I was excited about, but it wasn't really like mainstream big news. But I think Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is pretty big, where like it might do well for this episode. Anything else I want to talk about during the housekeeping section is if it's not obvious by my voice, I am sick. I believe I was sick last episode too. I was on the start of being sick, so maybe it wasn't as obvious, but I am sick. I can at least tell that I sound different, so if I sound kind of weird, that's why. I'm very sorry about that, but I am on the tail end of it, so I should be getting better. So yeah, and kind of related to that, I don't know if anyone noticed, but for the last podcast episode, I wasn't able to cut out any segments for it. Usually what I do is I kind of take certain segments of the podcast and make them into their own individual videos, and I try to do at least 2 per podcast episode, maybe 3 if I feel like it. And last week there were 0. I just had the podcast episode and nothing else because I am sick. So like I didn't really have energy. On top of that, it's Ramadan, so I'm fasting. I literally can't drink water or eat right now, and my sleeping schedule is kind of shitty, so everything is really against me right now. So I wasn't able to do the segments last week. I'm gonna hope to do it this week, but like no promises because I am noticing myself getting pretty tired early in the day, so we'll see. But yeah, that's why there were like no videos last week on my channel other than the podcast episode itself. And other than that, something I actually wanted to show, this came in yesterday. I pre-ordered this last year and it finally came, which I really am excited about, but it's this. Audio listeners, I will describe it. I'm showing the camera right now, but it is the Final Fantasy 16 art book. It is beautiful. It's huge. It's thick. It's like 300 plus pages. It is freaking gorgeous. It's high quality. I'm just going to show like maybe random parts of it. I'll make sure it's not like spoilery stuff. This is like right at the start. It shows like Clive, Jill, and Joshua as kids. Hopefully it's in focus. I can't see my camera because the book is in front of my face. It looks beautiful. There's so much good art. Here's more kind of like cover art type stuff. Kind of shows Clive, kind of shows the entire gang. Again, I cannot tell if you could see the pages properly. Hopefully you can. But yeah, it's a really nice art book, and I pre-ordered it like, I don't know, maybe July of last year, whenever like the game came out like in June. It came out on my birthday, I remember that. So I think the pre-order for this came out soon after, and I remember being kind of annoyed that the art book release was going to happen so much later because it came out March of this year, which is like, I don't know, like 8 months after. But now that I have it, I'm kind of happy about it because I actually get to kind of dig deep into it without any like reservations. There's no like worry about me being spoiled by anything, which is nice because I have some other art books. Like I have the Rebirth art book. I have an art book for like a movie I bought. I have like art books that come with the Trails games. And the thing that's annoying with all of those is that like I can't ever look at them right away because I have to finish the game or the movie first so I don't get spoiled. But with 16, it's been long enough where I've done the game, and so I can fully, dive deep into this art book without any problem. So I'm pretty excited to go into this later. I have no idea how you're supposed to read an art book. Like I don't know if that's a thing you just do like from start to finish. I don't know if you are supposed to randomly open a page and go to it. I don't know how you're supposed to consume an art book, but this will be my first proper art book that I'm gonna look into, and I think I'm probably just gonna be opening random pages and looking at it. I don't think I'm actually gonna go from start to finish, so we'll see, but I'm pretty excited about that. And one more thing I wanted to show before the podcast starts, this really doesn't have anything to do with JRPGs, but is more like kind of like Japanese related, is I got these playing cards from like Studio Ghibli, which are dope, so I just want to show them off. I'm just like looking at the case right now, give me a second, but I'll explain it for the audio listeners. But it came in this super cool case which has like this golden like Studio Ghibli logo. If it could focus, please. Yeah, you can kind of see the Studio Ghibli logo right there. It's in gold for audio listeners on the plastic case, and the cards themselves are super cool. On the back they have No Face, which is the dude from Spirited Away, as you can see right here. And the fronts of the cards, literally all of them are just screenshots of movies. So you can see like the big castle here on the front. You have like random ones. Like this is like super dope. So I just kind of I literally just got this to like get free shipping on Amazon because like I was buying something really cheap. But like these are like super cool looking. You have this one of like the sunset with the two main characters, the guy and the girl. So like really cool playing cards. I don't really play cards that often anymore, but if I do, I'm gonna use these. I'm not the type of guy to buy something and not use it, so like I will use these. I kind of like when things get worn when I use them. So I just want to show that off because it is kind of tangentially Japanese related, and this is a JRPG podcast, and it was, super cool when I got it. It was like, it's better than I expected. It was just $20. It's not like it was expensive either. So, super cool find. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the podcast proper with the first actual segment, which is the What I'm Playing segment. Now, usually this part of the segment has been pretty long of the podcast. And so this time is not to say because I haven't played that much. This past week, like I said, I've been sick, I've been busy, I've been fasting, I've been tired. So I just haven't had that much time to play. So the only game that I'm going to be talking about is Final Fantasy Crisis Core. I believe I mentioned last time I had an episode where I was 92% on the game, so I thought I was going to finish the next time I play. I didn't expect there to be a section of the game which was like the hardest part of the game I've experienced so far. If anyone's played it, just to generally describe it, you're kind of in a cave and you're kind of exploring through like an actual dungeon. And so it was like the first part of the game where I actually put in headphones and listened to a podcast because it was just like purely gameplay and not too much plot. And it got to a point where I was about to take a break from the game. I'm doing air quotes right now because I pretty much what you have to do is go around, explore this cave dungeon area. You gotta it's very maze-like, and then I find out you have to find these 7 materia to unlock a certain door, and to get the 7 materia you gotta fight these 7 different bosses, which are actually pretty strong, and they all have different weaknesses. Some are weak to magic, some are weak to physical, some are weak to specific magic, etc. But the last thing you have to fight is this big behemoth, and he's such a fucking pain in the ass to fight. My god, he was a reason where I was contemplating just dropping the game, because I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I'm the type of person to play games on easy just to get the story. And if a boss is kicking my ass multiple times, I'm likely to drop the game unless I'm really into the game. And so with Crisis Core, I know I do have to finish it so I can move on to Rebirth. So I wasn't actually gonna drop it, but I lost to the behemoth a few times, and I was losing for what I believed were cheap reasons, and so I was very getting annoyed and frustrated. But pretty much what ended up happening is the behemoth has a move right at the start where he uses regen, and you pretty much can't damage it. It just keeps infinitely regenerating health, and you cannot damage more than it regens. And so I kept dying because of that. I'm I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do here. And then I had a memory that I got a material called Dispel Blade earlier in the game, and I put it on, and it does what it says, thankfully, where if you hit it with that move, regen gets cancelled. I'm cool. Okay, cool, I could probably beat it now. It has a fuck ton of health, so the battle's long, and what ends up happening is, at some point, the behemoth uses a move that does 10,000 damage. Zach only has 4,000 health for me at this point, and so it always one-hits me. One shot every single time. And so here I was just frustrated. I'm what am I supposed to do at this point? And luckily I realized that I can just cheese a game by spamming Phoenix Downs. And I didn't know that Phoenix Down works like this. Maybe this is the only game that it works like this, or maybe there's other Final Fantasy games where it does. But my brother actually told me, because he loves this game, where in this game when you use a Phoenix Down, you can use it on yourself, and it's pretty much a preemptive Phoenix Down where if you die at any point after using it, you will come alive. And so the first time I died, I apparently had a Phoenix Down already because of some NPC, and so I came back alive. And then what I ended up doing is every time I came back alive, I just spammed another Phoenix Down on myself, and then whenever that one hit attack happened to me, I would come back alive. And so I ended up beating the behemoth. I died I think 4 or 5 times on it because it kept using the one hit attack, and I finally got through it. But that is an example of a boss where I think is kind of cheap, and obviously there are things you can do to get around it, but the only thing really is to grind, because theoretically I could have just grinded missions until my health was more than double than what it was, but that's not fun. I don't want to do that. No one really wants to do that. And if there is another way to do it, I didn't know it. There was a move that you can put a barrier around yourself to weaken magic attacks. That didn't really do anything, because the behemoth was casting Comet pretty much to kill me, and I thought that was magic, but I guess it isn't, because the magic barrier wasn't really doing shit, or maybe the magic barrier just wasn't strong enough. But thankfully there was a way to cheese it with Phoenix Downs. I had to use a lot of Phoenix Downs. I think I only had 8 in total, and now I only have 3, which sucks, because I don't know what the final boss of this game is. And so yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I don't know what percentage I'm done right now. I'm assuming it'll be somewhere in the ballpark of 95, and if I do play again, hopefully I'll be done the game, because I do want to finish that. And yeah, other than Final Fantasy Crisis Core Reunion, Final Fantasy VII Remake I haven't played since last episode, because I have to record an episode of the Let's Play whenever I do, and I just haven't had the chance because, again, I'm sick, I'm fasting, etc. And so yeah, that's pretty much all I played. I do play other games too, I'll play GTA 5 and stuff, but I'm not going to mention it in this podcast because that's not a JRPG. But yeah, in terms of JRPGs, Final Fantasy Crisis Core is all that I've been playing. And so we are done with the what I'm playing section of the podcast, and let's move on to the JRPG I'm looking forward to. Now, the JRPG I am looking forward to is technically not an RPG, and I mentioned this when I talked about this in a previous episode, but I'm talking about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I am beyond hype for this game because if you don't know, Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is a sequel to the Budokai Tenkaichi series. Dragon Ball had a very famous series on the PS2, which was Budokai Tenkaichi, Budokai Tenkaichi 2, Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and everyone's always wanted a fourth game in the series, but that never happened. I think they've had like other games that they tried. I think there was one called Ultimate Tenkaichi, and apparently it sucked. I never tried it, so I'm not sure. But this game is being advertised as the Budokai Tenkaichi 4. They just renamed it to Sparking Zero because apparently in Japan the series was called Sparking, and so we are getting that here. It is beyond exciting. I cannot wait for it. And the reason I am talking about it today, and you'll hear more about this in the next news section, is they actually had a live stream where they showed 2 new trailers for the game. One was a gameplay trailer, which was insane. I loved it. And the second was a character trailer. And if you know the Budokai Tenkaichi series, you know that the main focus of the game, at least in my opinion, is the characters. Budokai Tenkaichi has so many fucking characters. They have like the most random characters. Like they have Pilaf. He's a character, like his robot. They have like the Ginyu Force. They have like random like Frieza Force members. You can play as anyone in Budokai Tenkaichi. That was like the appeal of it. And so the fact that they're still focusing on that for this game is very exciting to me, and I'll talk about more about that when I kind of seamlessly transition to the news section. But I kind of want to talk about like why I'm into this game, and it's because the Budokai Tenkaichi 2 and 3 were games that I grew up with. I would say they were like a select number of co-op games as a kid that I played kind of with my brothers and cousins on the PS2. That was the Budokai Tenkaichi series. It was Ratchet Deadlocked, the Madagascar mini golf mini game specifically, and I want to say that's it. I don't remember. Tony Hawk, I guess. Tony Hawk Project 8 is another one, but like Budokai Tenkaichi was like that main one where like we just went all out. It was amazing. It was like the first game we saw that had like team battles, so you could do like a 5v5 in the way we played, because we played as 5 people with my brothers and cousins, where we would just like have like 3 people on one team and 2 people on another team. Each person gets to control a certain number of characters, and it was beyond exciting. Like I loved it, and so I'm really hoping that Sparking Zero is almost 1-to-1 to the Budokai Tenkaichi series in terms of that. Like they better have a team 5v5 mode. They better have like the normal mode. I never used this, but it'd be funny if they had like the calm v calm mode, which was literally a mode where you just get to watch the AI fight each other. If they have that again, that'd be funny. I remember they had a mode which is very cool where like they assign values to fighters, and you had to pick fighters based on that. So like they would give you, for example, 20 points you got to spend, and the stronger the fighter, the more points you have to spend. So you could pick 5 shitty characters, or you could pick like 2 powerful characters. That was a very interesting mode that I didn't play much, but like I tried once in a while, and it was pretty fun to play at. So like maybe they'll have that again. So I have a very deep history with the series, and when Sparking Zero was announced, I was very excited, and the showcase did not disappoint. So I'm gonna seamlessly transition into the JRPG news section in Spill the Tearal, because I'm just gonna be talking about the news, because that's what brought up me talking about this anyways. And so we are now in the news section, and so pretty much the showcase they had earlier today, they had the trailer for the gameplay and the trailer for the characters. So I'll go over both of them and what I noticed. Funnily enough, as I was watching the trailers, I was pretty much texting my brother what I noticed in it, and so I just pretty much put my text in my notes. The gameplay trailer, all it was a battle between Goku and Vegeta. They pretty much started as base form, and throughout the battle, at some point, both of them transform into Super Saiyan Blue, and at the end, Goku wins. And there's a lot that happens in the battle, and some things that I want to note are, one thing is battle damage clothes. It was super cool to see, and I love that it's battle damage that's kind of like iconic. So like with Vegeta, he was wearing the Saiyan armor, but by the end of the battle, his actual armor was gone, and his spandex part was kind of ripped, and that's something you see in the anime and manga a lot. With Goku, it was the iconic, he started with his orange gi, but by the end, the orange part of his gi was ripped, and it was just his blue shirt and his orange pants. So that was really cool to see. There were key clashes, which is very legendary in Budokai Tenkaichi, where like if you do 2 supers at once, you have to do a key clash, and it was different, the mechanic, which I'm kind of happy about, because in Budokai Tenkaichi they had a mechanic where you had to take the analog sticks of the controller and just spin it, and while I was very good at that no doubt fucks up your controller, especially these days where like stick drift is a thing. That would 100% kill your controller, so I'm happy that's not a thing anymore. I couldn't tell exactly what the mechanic was. It was kind of like you have to press triangle on a meter, I think. I couldn't understand how it works, because I would think you would have to press triangle like when the meter is at its highest, but like the way they're showing it in the gameplay, they were pressing it when it was at its lowest, or like, I don't know if they were just bad at it or something, but the mechanic is different with key clashes, but I'm happy that key clashes are making a return. Something I was very happy about is that the UI elements are the exact same. While they look different and more modern, they have the exact same type of health bar, they have the same type of key bars, they have the gauge bar, which was used to do like instant transmission and like certain ultimates and stuff. So like, I thought that was very interesting. One thing I did notice is that the gauge bar is renamed. I believe it was called the gauge bar in Budokai Tenkaichi. I don't know if it was officially named that, but I think somewhere it said gauge, so that's what I call it. But throughout the showcase, they specifically always said that it's called skill count now. So the gauge bar is now renamed to skill count. So if I ever mention it, gauge or skill count, I'm talking about the same thing. But yeah, that is something I noticed about the UI too. One thing that was super cool, and it was actually one of the uses of skill count, and this is something I believe was not a thing in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, was that at some point Vegeta uses Gallic Gun, which is a super, and he uses it on Goku. And in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, you either had to like block it and take some damage, or you could like instant transmission last second or something. But Goku straight up just deflects the Gallic Gun, and I was like, what the fuck? You can do that? That was insane. And later in the showcase, they actually explained that Goku used 2 of his skill count to deflect it. So it looks like skill count is still a very important part of the game, but not only that, they're actually adding more things to do with it. And this seems like such an obvious thing, like, yeah, deflecting supers, that's dope, but like, yeah, I never thought about that, and the fact that they're adding it is so cool. And like, when it happens in gameplay, it's always gonna be a hype moment, because like, what moves can you do to? Because I can't even imagine like fighting against a Vegeta and they're using Final Flash, which is like a fucking insane move, and Goku just deflecting it like no one's business. I can't wait to see like the hype moments that you get from the game by doing that, because can you deflect a spirit bomb? Is that a thing you can do? Like, who knows? I really want to get to see how deep you can go with the mechanics and what you can deflect and what you can't. And like, there's potentially other things you can do with the skill count too, other than deflections that we don't even know about. So the whole deflection mechanic I thought was super cool that they showed. One other thing that I noticed, and this was so cool to see, and I noticed this, I don't think they talked about it in the actual like showcase, but I noticed this in the gameplay. But in Budokai Tenkaichi, you have a key bar and you can charge it up to full, and the key is yellow as you're charging it up. But if you keep charging, you can pretty much recharge the entire key bar fully again. But the second time you go again, the yellow key bars change into blue, and once you're fully full, your key bar pretty much gets this electric animation in Budokai Tenkaichi. And usually what that means is you pretty much have no slowdown, like you have infinite stamina. So if you really want, you can just keep spamming attack and keep attacking your opponent, and you'll literally never stop your combo until the blue key bar goes away. So that was one of the main benefits of it. You can also do like other moves because of it, but that was like all it did pretty much gameplay wise. In this, they made it a completely like godlike moment. I noticed when Vegeta got to the blue key bar, it transformed into purple when it was done. The sky darkened, it got cloudy, and the music changed. It was like some like Super Saiyan God-esque moment. And it was so cool that like it wasn't a cutscene or anything, but like gameplay wise, it felt completely different. And then when it was done, when he was out of his kind of electric key state, I don't know like what the official name of it is, it went back to normal and like a normal blue sky. And later in the gameplay, Goku got that state too, the sky darkened again and the music changed. Like, it was so fucking cool when it happened, and I'm so excited because whenever that key bar filled up in Budokai Tenkaichi, it was always a hype moment because you knew your opponent was about to beat your ass because he's an infinite combo you, but like that's all it was. It wasn't like visually shown as cool really. But now the fact that the entire environment changes and the music changes is really gonna make it like okay, I gotta lock in moment. So like if your opponent has that and the sky changes, you know you gotta lock in, you gotta defend, you gotta teleport, do whatever you can do to not get your ass beat. So like I really love that small change makes the game much more epic, because that's what Budokai Tenkaichi was. The battles were epic, and the fact that they're adding more to the epicness is like really appreciated. So I love that they added that too. In terms of other things, a very small thing that I noticed in it, and it's kind of like, I guess other people do this too, but one of kind of like the memey things I did in the game, like whenever I played with my brothers or cousins, is if you kind of stock enough key, or if you stock enough like gauge to use after image, you can have a battle where you're just teleporting for like 10-15 seconds straight. So like you'll hit your opponent, he teleports behind you, then he'll hit you, but you'll teleport behind him, and you keep doing that, and then like 15 teleports later, and then you're done. And they literally have that in this trailer where Goku and Vegeta are fighting, and for like 5 to 10 seconds they're both just teleporting and not touching each other. And when that happened, I like legitimately like laughed out loud, because I'm like, okay, so they know this is a thing, because this is something that I used to do as a kid, and the fact that they're showing it off, like they know exactly what they're doing. They know like the fan base they're catering to, and when that happened, I fucking loved it. So I can't wait to be doing these stupid useless teleporting battles in Sparking Zero 2. And that's pretty much what they had in the actual gameplay trailer. Like, the gameplay trailer is really good. It's just like a nice clean battle between Goku and Vegeta, and those are the things I noticed. There's probably other things I didn't notice because I just watched it once while it was happening live when it happened this morning, and so that those are the highlights for me. And later, after they explained like some of the key points in the first trailer, they had another trailer which was a character trailer, and like I mentioned, they completely understand that Budokai Tenkaichi is about its character, so they had this trailer to introduce characters. And man, I did not expect the amount of characters they were ready to like show in this trailer, because they showed off like one character, then like two, then three, then I'm like, they're probably gonna show like three, and I don't know how much they had by the end, but I want to say it was like about 10, maybe even more. It's like, let me try to like name them off the top of my head. They had Broly, they had Kill in her kind of like Broly form, they had Hit, they had Top, they had some like members from the Tournament of Power in Dragon Ball Super, which I don't know the names of, but they had like, I believe they had Ribrianne, they had like one of her henchmen. They had like a lot of characters, and the important part is they have those characters. Like, some of those like henchmen of like Ribrianne, like they weren't like that important in the actual story of Dragon Ball Super, but that's the point of Budokai Tenkaichi. Not all the characters have to be important. Like, we like having these random ass little characters because some people might like them and they might be fun to play as. And so the fact that they're adding all these fucking little characters in the game is like amazing. And like by the end of it, I honestly expect them to have every character from the Tournament of Power, because why not? They're all like characters, and if you're adding like random little ones, there's no reason you wouldn't add other ones. The only thing I'm kind of scared about is if they kind of take a DLC route, which obviously wasn't a thing in the old times, but we'll see how it is. Hopefully there isn't an excessive amount of DLCing they do in terms of characters, but I'm sure it will happen. But yeah, the character trailer was fantastic. Something that's like really cool to me, other than like they're showing characters from like Z and Super, which I thought was proper because they weren't just focusing on Z, which a lot of games like to do, but they were showing like character interactions between characters, and I don't understand like how that works specifically, because there would be a fight and Jace and Birder, which are both part of the Ginyu Force, they would do a combo attack against their enemy, and I'm like, I don't know how that works gameplay wise. Like, does that mean they're doing a team battle and they're playing as Birder and they just happen to have Jace in the party, or is it just an ultimate where Jace just comes for Birder's attack no matter what? They had a moment where Broly and Kale in her Broly form were like locking hands like in battle like this, and they were like, it was a kind of a cutscene. I'm like, is that a gameplay thing? Like, I don't know if that's like something they're showing in the story mode they might have, or if that's a thing that just might happen in the gameplay, because those two specific characters are very similar. They straight up had like a monologue from Hit talking about Broly, saying like how like they've created a monster by letting Broly get unleashed. That was super cool. I don't know. I don't know when any of this is gonna happen in actual battles proper. Like, there could be a chance that this is all just like in the actual story of the game, but we don't really know that. And so like, I was just very interested seeing all these like specific character moments and monologues where like these characters are interacting where you usually never have seen them interact in the main story of Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Super. And so I'm very interested to see more of that and how deep they delve into interactions between different characters, because it was super cool seeing that in the character trailer, and that's something I didn't expect at all. I thought they were just gonna be showing gameplay of different characters, but they kind of had the story of like these different characters interacting, because I believe the theme of the character trailer was speed versus power, and they were showing like power characters like Broly and speed characters like Dispo and Birder and things like that. So that was like super cool with the character trailer, and that's pretty much it in terms of what I want to talk about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. I am beyond hype about it. I'm so glad that they're having a nice balance between keeping what makes the game special and adding new stuff. And in the showcase, the person presenting was very specific about that, where he was like, this is the things that we did to make it the same as Budokai Tenkaichi. There were some things that worked, there were something that didn't, and then he was like, these are the things that we added to the base mechanics to like make it different, and that's like where the deflection and things came from. And it was just super cool seeing the new stuff along with the old stuff. Like Birder, they showed some gameplay of him, and he straight up had these same like fast as fuck animations from the Budokai Tenkaichi days, and if you played Budokai Tenkaichi, you would recognize that. So I cannot wait to see exactly what they kept and exactly what they changed. And so yeah, that's pretty much my discussion on Dragon Ball Sparking Zero. And like I mentioned, that was the transition from the JRPG I'm playing to the JRPG news segment. So let's just continue going with the JRPG news segment to the next one, which is a demo. A demo was released recently, which is a demo I actually really want to try, because I talked about this game before on a previous episode, which is Sandland, which is one of Akira Toriyama's properties. And Sandland was a game that I didn't know if I would like gameplay wise, but the more I've seen of it, the more cooler it looks, and it's definitely a game that I would want to try before buying, because it is a very expensive game. I'm likely never going to get a full price. I'll probably get it on sale, but they actually released a demo for Sandland, so I am definitely excited to try that. I was planning to try it before this episode so I can kind of talk about it, but again, I didn't really have time because I'm sick and all that. But yeah, I cannot wait for it. And like, obviously, with Akira Toriyama's passing, like, I want to try this even more, because one of the things I loved about Akira Toriyama is there was no one like him in terms of vehicle designs. Like I don't know if a lot of people know this, but like, he did Dragon Ball, but if you have the manga of Dragon Ball, there'll be some random manga covers where like Goku is riding a motorcycle, and it would obviously be designed by Akira Toriyama. And Toriyama's vehicle designs are like second to none. Like, they're so fucking good, and they have like this specific design. And what I love about Sandland is literally just that. It's all about vehicles, it's all about robots and mechs, and like things that I believe like Toriyama probably loved to design, because he was always trying to kind of put those elements in Dragon Ball. And obviously Dragon Ball Z evolved into something where you didn't really need vehicles or mechs anymore. But like, the fact that Sandland is like almost completely that design style in vehicles, I can't wait to see it all, and like kind of relish in that design. And like, since it's also like one of the last things probably that he worked on, I kind of want to enjoy it even more from that perspective. So the demo is out. I believe it's out on every platform that it's going to be on. I noticed it's on PlayStation, I believe it's on PC, I bet it's on Xbox and all that. And so I'm going to be trying it later, and hopefully I'll have tried it before the next episode of Spill the Tearal, and then I can give my opinions on it. Another piece of news, I noticed this trailer get announced earlier today. It is a game called Azure Promelia, and apparently this is made by the developers of Azure Lane. It's a game coming on PS5, PC, iOS, and Android. And so I have heard of Azure Lane. I didn't know what it was, and I was surprised because I first looked at the Azure Promelia trailer, and if you look it up, it pretty much looks like a Genshin Impact type game, where like if you look at it, there's like whales swimming, and like the graphic style is exactly like Genshin Impact, very anime, very like same type of shading style, but it's a beautiful game. Like, it looks really nice. I don't know what the game is. They don't really show combat, but it looks like a very like expansive open world RPG type game. And so that's Azure Promelia. And so I decided to look back at Azure Lane gameplay, and I was surprised because I only saw like a few seconds of it, but it looked like a side-scrolling bullet storm shooter type game, and I was very confused how you go from Azure Lane to Azure Promelia. But apparently that's just a jump they're making, because if you look at the Azure Promelia trailer and you go to the comments, everyone in the comments is like, yo, this is like a big ass jump for the developers, and everyone's happy seeing their money from Azure Lane going into this, because I guess Azure Lane is probably like a gacha type game where like people are giving them a lot of money, and so they're just really excited to see like the jump they made. And so again, I can't really glean what type of game it is from the trailer. It just looks beautiful, the cutscenes, and so it is something I want to keep my eye on, because Genshin Impact was a game I did play for like maybe a month, and I did enjoy it, and this game looks like it. I don't know what the gameplay style is, but I'm gonna keep my eye out for that and see how it goes. And let's go to the next news topic, which is the beta registrations are actually up for ZZZ, which is Zenless Zone Zero, which is a game made by the Genshin Impact developers, funnily enough. And it is a game I talked about before. It's a game I think looks freaking cool. A lot of weapon types, graphic style looks cool. It kind of takes place in an urban looking city, and they have the beta registrations up. I tried registering for it. I think I'm registered for it. I registered, then they gave me a survey to do. I spent like a few minutes on the survey, and I accidentally left my browser. I came back, and they made me start over. Then I just quit. I don't want to do the survey again. And so hopefully I am registered. I don't know if I have to complete the survey to register, but yep, that is up if you're interested in that. And the final thing I want to talk about in the news section, and technically this is not a JRPG, but I thought this was just so cool that I want to talk about it, is that Sea of Stars, which is an RPG that was released earlier, is getting an update, which is super cool. So Sea of Stars is like this turn-based JRPG. I haven't played it myself. I really want to play it. I have it through PS Plus, but from my understanding, it is a turn-based JRPG, or an RPG, and you have like 2 party members fighting with you, I believe. And the update they added is they're changing it so that you can play it 3 players. So pretty much, instead of you playing with 2 party members, you'll be able to play with 2 other people. That's super fucking cool to me. Like, I don't know the details about this. I don't know if they released like too many details about it, but like, I'm interested to see like how far they go into this. Like, is it just a thing where like the other 2 will be able to play in battle and they can't actually move around, or is it a full thing where like they'll be able to move around the map with you? If it is a thing where they're able to move around the map with you, like, that's like amazing. I'm clapping for them, because like this is something I've always wanted as a kid. Like, I remember as a kid when I used to play Kingdom Hearts 2, I've always wanted them to just update it so I could play with my brother, because we used to play so many co-op games. Kingdom Hearts 2 was our favorite game, and we wish that we could play it together. And so the fact that like there's a game that is pretty much doing that, where they're taking a single player game and making it into a multiplayer game, is super amazing to me. So hopefully that's something more games do. I know like co-op games aren't like that popular of a thing anymore, but hopefully this does good. And if it is something that is good, I'm very excited to see if more games end up doing it in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to talk about. It's technically not a JRPG, but it was such a cool thing that I noticed that I just wanted to talk about it. But yeah, that pretty much rounds up our JRPG news section. And so let's move on to the JRPGs that are releasing this week. Okay, so in terms of the releases, like always, they are sourced from icicledisaster.com. And this week I also got some from rpgsite.com because Icicle Disaster had like a small error with on, so I kind of double checked with the RPG site. But this week there are 4 games that are released, and this is nice because last week there were no games that were released. But let's start with the first one, which is, actually there's 5 games. There's actually 5, not 4. And the first one is Final Fantasy XIV is finally on the Xbox Series lines of consoles. It is coming out on March 21st, which is tomorrow. This is very exciting. I love Final Fantasy XIV. I talked about this last week, I believe. And the more people that get to play this game, the better, because it is a fantastic MMO in my opinion. And so the bigger the fan base for the game is, the better it'll do. And like, I think it's just well regarded from the fans that like, as it's just like a great game that's continuing, and they really, listen to the community. And the fact that it's coming on Xbox is really nice. And I've always played this on PC, and I recently kind of started playing on PlayStation. It was kind of hard for me to kind of start map the controller controls for it, but I finally got that set up. I haven't really played it since, but it is something I do want to get back into. It's just that I'm kind of busy with Crisis Core and 7 Remake, and I'm going to go to Rebirth. But at some point, once I've done all those and I want my Final Fantasy fix, I'm sure I'll be going back into Final Fantasy 14. But yeah, Final Fantasy 14 Xbox Series, March 21st. The second game is Dragon's Dogma 2, coming to PS5, Xbox Series, PC on the 22nd of March. Now, this is a pretty big game, I think. I think this is like a huge game for a lot of people. I don't know much about the game. I know it's kind of like this expansive RPG. I'm kind of looking up for the footage of it so I can get a better idea of it. But the only experience I have with this game, and unfortunately, it's I pretty much was interested in this game because it looked cool to me. So I decided to play Dragon's Dogma 1, which was on PlayStation Plus for free. And I played it and I quit playing it like 10 minutes in. And the reason was, I don't know if this is going to be, the same for Dragon's Dogma 2, but I believe they didn't have lock-on and they did not have dodge rolling. And so like the actual gameplay experience of Dragon's Dogma 1 was like abysmal for me because I just couldn't hit anyone because I couldn't lock on, and I couldn't really dodge roll to recenter myself or anything. And so like I was just fucking missing and like not having a good time. And the game didn't really look that good visually either because it is an old game, and it was kind of like, it's from the era of games where it was very brown and kind of like not beautiful looking. And so I kind of dropped off the game. This game looks a lot better visually. Gameplay wise, maybe it's better, I'm not sure. But yeah, it is something that is coming out on March 22nd. On Steam, it says March 21st. On the websites, it says March 22nd. It's coming out generally March 22nd, I guess. But yeah, it is a cool looking game. I'll probably look into it after the reviews to see if it is something that I'll like. But yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming out very soon. Next, we have The Legend of Legacy HD Remastered, which is coming out on PS5, PS4, Switch, and PC on the 22nd of March. And this is a game that I remember I had on my wish list for a while because it was a game that looked cool. I don't know if I'll get it anytime soon, but because it's pretty much a game that I would get if I was like ever bored and wanted a JRPG to play. It is a very like simple chibi looking turn-based JRPG. That's pretty much the only way I can describe it based on how it looks. It looks kind of like Chrono Trigger-y. They have like this frog in your party, like the one in Chrono Trigger. But yeah, pretty simple JRPG. If you're interested in that, that is coming out also on 22nd of March. Pretty much every game is coming out on 22nd of March on my list. After that, we have Reverse Collapse, codename Bakery. This game is kind of like a tactical JRPG. It looks kind of like militaristic. I see a lot of guns. It looks kind of dark, honestly. And they're fighting on a grid. And I thought it was, honestly, from the title, I thought it was going to be like a lighthearted game because it said Codename Bakery. So I thought it was going to be like a baking game. It clearly isn't. It's very like military style. But the visual style is kind of like these chibi anime characters. They're 2D. The environment is kind of 2D. And so kind of like a simple looking game visually. But if you're into tactical RPGs, this might be fun for you. I'm trying to see if it actually is tactical because it is like a grid-based combat, but like it may be real time. But from what I see, they're showing a lot of cutscenes, so I can't really tell if it's like turn-based or real time. But that's like generally what it is. Top view isometric type JRPG. After that, we have our last one, which is Rise of the Ronin, which is coming out on PlayStation 5, also on March 22nd. March 22nd is a fucking amazing day, I guess, based on these releases. But Rise of the Ronin is the JRPG that is coming on PlayStation 5 exclusively, and it is the one that takes place in Japan. Very Ghost of Tsushima-esque, where you're kind of playing as this kind of like samurai ninja warrior looking dude, and you're gliding around. I don't know the specifics, like I said, I don't really watch trailers from the fear of spoilers. This is something which I'm pretty sure I'll play at some point, and I feel like this is a game that will probably come on PS Plus at some point, and so like I'll probably play it then. But it looks really fun to play, and yeah, it's a samurai ninja game. Not much more to say than that. But those are the releases for JRPGs this week. Now that we're done with that, let's move on to the segment of talking about a JRPG mechanic that I think is dope. Now, the mechanic that I want to talk about is actually a lack of a mechanic, and that is that I believe in games, and especially JRPGs, the less choice that you have in games, the better the story is for the game. And I noticed whenever I played a game where they were giving me more choice at certain parts of the story, or if it was a game that was built on choice, usually the story isn't as good, or it's a more generic feeling. Now, what do I mean by this? I want to start with a very specific example from the Trills games, which I noticed. And whenever like this happened, I kind of got annoyed because I knew what was coming. But the Trills games, they have like this game loop where you have to go into like dungeons every once in a while. And at some point of the game, you'll have like a massive party of characters. So like, say for example, you have like 10 characters in your reservation, and like you're able to choose however many you want in the dungeon. And so what will happen is you're about to go into the dungeon, they tell you to pick 4 characters and you go in. But sometimes what would happen is they would let you pick a specific amount of characters. So sometimes there would be a moment where they're like, okay, you have to choose 4 characters for your party, right? And they'd be like, you need to have Reen in your party, you need to have Crow in your party, and for the other 2, pick whoever you want. And when that happens, what that usually means is that there's going to be some story beat in this dungeon involving Reen and Crow, and the other 2 don't matter. Like, they'll still talk, because they kind of do that. Well, they'll still have the other 2 talk, but the actual story importance will go to these characters that are, you know, forced by the game to be in your party. And so there'll be some dungeons where they're like, they force you to choose 4 characters in your party, and whenever that happened, I was beyond excited, because that meant this dungeon was going to be important story-wise, because these 4 characters all specifically have to be there, meaning there's going to be something important for all 4 of them in this dungeon. And conversely, there would be some dungeons where they're like, yeah, choose any 4 you want, you can choose whoever you want in this dungeon. Whenever that happened, I'm like, okay, this is just filler. Like, I'm just gonna get through the entire dungeon, and there's gonna be probably no plot point, or there may be a plot point, but it'll be something where like it's generic enough where your character's reactions don't matter too much, and then the actual reactions will come when you're done the dungeon and all the characters are together. And so that's one example where like anytime that game gave me the choice to pick my party members, which usually you think is a good thing, you're like, yeah, I want choice, I want to choose my party members. But in terms of story, that just meant you were getting a more watered down experience in terms of what was going to happen. Whereas if they kind of forced a party onto you, you knew that you were going to get some like, you know, proper story in that dungeon. So that's one example of it. And this kind of, you know, choice or no choice in games takes different forms in different games in different ways. Another example, a very famous example, is character customization. Now, this is a more specific example where, like, if you have character customization in a game, you can pretty much throw out the idea of your character being important in terms of a design/lineage aspect, I would say. Like, for example, I have played like many JRPGs where like at some point it's revealed like if you have a party member with like blue hair and there happened to be someone in the villains group with blue hair, you find out that your party member is that villain's son, for example. And that can also happen with the main character. So like I played games where like, yeah, the main character has this certain type of design and you find out that he's the son of like some other character, and that wouldn't really be possible if you were able to customize your character. Now, technically, they can get away with it. Like, you could make like some whatever monstrosity you want, and they'd be like, yeah, you can be the son of that character. But it makes it less believable. Like, I appreciate when they design my character and like there's specific reason for the design. Like, I have black hair for a reason. I may have like red eyes because I'm part of some like certain like famous lineage of ninjas or whatever the fuck. I'm just making something up, but like the point is your design can be important to the story. And once you enter the realm of character customization, that's immediately thrown out the window. So like I know that if the game has character customization, then my character doesn't really matter in terms of like who they are, but it's more of like their role in the story. And that's not a bad thing, but like I rather have like them be an important character in the world too. And so like that's just another example where like the more choice they give you for character customization, the worse story they'll have in that aspect where like their design / family probably won't be a thing in the game. And another more like general example of this is just like games in general. Like if you have a linear game versus an open game, the linear game will have better story. Like I don't even want to say like they mostly have better story. I think they will. There have been like a bigger uptick of more open games lately, like in the past like few years, which I personally am not a fan of, but like I think the general public is. Like the Breath of the Wilds, the Elden Rings, like these are games which kind of like are touted for like you just start the game and you can go wherever you want. You don't have to in Breath of the Wild you can go straight to what's his name, Ganondorf, I believe. You can go straight to Ganondorf and try fighting him. You don't have to do anything. And like I know that's a cool thing gameplay wise, but from the story wise, that's like the most boring thing like ever. Like I hate that. Like I don't like Breath of the Wild. I don't like Elden Ring for those reasons. And so like I just can't see a way you can have a good story in those games. Is it possible? Yes, but it's really fucking hard, because if the developers have to like look at every single possibility of you going to the different towns of the game in any order and making a cohesive story from any single permutation of order of you visiting the towns, you're not going to get a good story out of that. You can if the developers are crazy and they make a story for every single order, but they won't, because that's not feasible. And so like if you want a better story from a game, the game will probably have to be a more linear game versus a game that's more open. And I remember that specifically from Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild was my first and only Zelda game that I played. And this criticism is only to Breath of the Wild, because I know like the past Zelda games don't really fall into this. But yeah, I played it and like, you know, it started and they're pretty much like, yeah, you can go anywhere in the world you want. And I don't know how deep I got into the game, but I know you had to fight those 4, I don't know what they're called, but I think they were called Divine Beasts or something like that. You had to fight 4 of those, and I believe after that you would fight Ganondorf. I had fought 2 of those Divine Beasts, so I was like maybe nearly 50% of the game done, I'd assume. I don't know what the fuck the story of the game was. Like I have zero idea. Like I don't know. Like if you ask me like a story beat, I have no idea what the story is about. I don't remember there being cutscenes really. I think there were cutscenes when you enter a new village maybe, but like in terms of actual story and plot, like there were none from what I remember. And if there were any and I forgot, like that kind of shows like how much of an impression it gave on me. But yeah, like I played Elden Ring 2. And that also, like, I don't remember any story of it. Like, I don't know the plot of the game. I thought it was pretty fun for, like, the little I played of Elden Ring. Like, gameplay-wise, it was really fun. But, like, in terms of story, like, there was really nothing there. There was lore in Elden Ring. I know that's a thing, but lore does not equal story. You can have lore in a game, but you need a story to be a vehicle of the actual main plot of the specific game you're playing. And then lore on top of that is cool. You can't just have lore and have that be a sufficient story of a game. I don't think that's, like, something that any game really should be doing. And so that's just another example where like the more open your game is, the worse the story probably is going to be. And obviously this is all assuming you care about that. I know a lot of people that don't give a single fuck about story and they just care about gameplay. Then this doesn't apply to you obviously. But to me, where like I play games mainly for the story, and so the less choice there is for a game, the better it is for me for the story. So yeah, that's pretty much all I want to mention in terms of that, because yeah, it's just like the more choice you have is like, you just have to look at it as like a point of view from the developers. Like you can't expect them to look at every single possibility when you're doing the choosing. And so when they have the control in their hands, they objectively can have a better grasp on the game design, and from there they can have a better grasp of the story, and that's where it goes from there. Whereas if we choose, they can't really predict what we're going to do, and the story will suffer from that. But yeah, that's pretty much my opinion on why I think less choice in games leads to better story in games. And from that, we will go to our final segment, because my voice is dying, and I know I sound horrid, and I'm sorry. I can hear myself sounding like a piece of shit. Like I don't know if this will be nice to listen to, but we'll be going to our final segment, which is the JRPG casual top list, which is a top list that I give that is JRPG related, which is very casual. I just think of the options kind of at the top of my head, and then I list them out to you right away, and then I'll give you some reasons if I have any reasons for them. And the top list for this week is my top Dragon Ball game series, and I thought this was apt because we talked about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero this episode, and I'm going to be giving you my top 3 game series, and I'll give you the list right off the top. Number 3 is the Dragon Ball Kakarot series. Number 2 is the Xenoverse series. And number 1 is the Budokai Tenkaichi series. I hope I'm not forgetting a series that I like more than Kakarot or Xenoverse, because honestly, I had a hard time picking the games because Kakarot, I didn't even play that much. I played like 5, maybe 10 hours of it, and I really loved it. I just like fell off because I was busy, but I really thought it was a solid game. It's probably the definitive game if you want to experience the Dragon Ball story in a game form, so I like that. The visual styles were cool, the gameplay was dope, the boss fights were dope. So like Kakarot I thought was like a really solid game, and the reason it's at number 3 and not like higher is because I just didn't play that much of it, so I have no idea like how good it actually is. Number 2 was Xenoverse. Xenoverse is funny because I love dogging on Xenoverse. Like, I talk shit about it all the time. I think it's one of the ugliest looking games. It's the ugliest looking Dragon Ball game for sure. The visual style is bad. Goku does not look like Goku. The characters look weird. The combat is janky. But I still love it. I realize this because I remember when I first got Xenoverse 1, I liked it. I played local with my brother a lot. Xenoverse 2 came out. I love the story. I played it on my PlayStation 4. I went through it. At some point, it was on sale on the Switch. I bought it. I played through the story. I loved it. At some point, it was on sale on PC. I bought it. I played through the story. I loved it. And when I say I played through the story, I don't mean the story only. I mean like doing the story, going to all 5 of those like faction things you can do, like Namek's house, Hercule's house, and things like that, leveling those up or whatever. Like all the extra stuff. I did all that repeatedly. Like, I realize that I do enjoy the Xenoverse series and I love what they do, and that I actually would be happy with the Xenoverse 3, assuming they change the visual style, because I just fucking hate that. And like, it's just way too buggy. Like, the cutscenes in the game are just demonstrably bad. The sound mixing is horrible. It's just weird how much of a mess it is, but I still enjoy it because it's just a fun game at the end of the day. And so yeah, and the story is honestly pretty solid. I think it's probably my favorite Dragon Ball game story because it's actually a new Dragon Ball game story. They don't do the thing where like you're just playing through the original Dragon Ball story. It's actually like a new plot with future Trunks, and you're kind of trying to save time and shit like that. So I do appreciate it from a story perspective, and so that's why I said number 2. I like the gameplay and I like the story, even though it is janky. And number 1, to probably no one's surprise if you listen to the rest of the podcast, it is the Budokai Tenkaichi series. Not much more to say. I talked about it. I love Budokai Tenkaichi. Grew up with it. Played with my brothers and cousins. Sparking Zero is one of my most hyped games right now, and I just cannot wait to play it because it looks like they are living up to the hype from what they've showed so far. But yeah, that is my top Dragon Ball game series. Number 3 is Kakarot. Number 2 is Xenoverse. Number 1 is Budokai Tenkaichi. And that will wrap up this episode of Spill the Tearal, episode 7. I'm talking like this to catch my breath. And yeah, sorry again for being sick. I gotta see how it sounds when I'm editing, but I sound nasally as fuck, so hopefully it is bearable, because I don't know if it will be, because I hope it's bearable, because like Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is such a important thing to me, so I don't want this episode to just be unlistenable because of the reason that I was sick. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed watching/listening to this episode. If you didn't know, this podcast is on audio services. If you look in the description, you can find links to this podcast for Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, whatever. If you just search it up on any of those services, it'll come up to Spill the Tearal. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Hopefully you enjoyed episode 7. Hope to see you for episode 8 next week, and I will see you next time. Peace.